As children, Emily and Sarah were inseparable. They lived next door to each other, spent summers building forts in the woods, and shared secrets whispered under the covers during sleepovers. From their very first meeting in kindergarten, it was as if the universe had intended for their lives to intertwine. Sarah was the bold one, adventurous, outspoken, always leading them into mischief. Emily, quieter and more reserved, followed with an eager heart, trusting Sarah to guide them both through the trials of childhood. Their friendship was their whole world, and to them it felt eternal. But life, as it so often does, had other plans. In middle school, things began to change. They went to different schools, and though they still hung out on weekends, the time between their visits grew longer. Sarah had her new friends, a vibrant group of girls who talked about boys, parties, and music that Emily didn't quite understand. Emily tried to fit in, to keep up with Sarah's new world, but there was a distance forming, a crack that, once small, began to grow with each passing year. High school came, and by then, their lives had diverged even further. Sarah was on the cheerleading squad, always surrounded by people, while Emily, quiet and studious, spent most of her time in the library. They still smiled and waved when they passed each other in the hallways, but the conversations had become surface level, their once shared secrets replaced with polite small talk. Emily missed the late-night chats and the feeling that someone truly understood her. She could sense Sarah slipping away, and no matter how hard she tried to cling to their bond, it was as if she were holding onto sand, slipping through her fingers. When they graduated, Sarah moved to another city for college, while Emily stayed closer to home, attending a local university. The distance, both physical and emotional, widened. At first, Emily tried to keep the connection alive. She sent texts, called on birthdays, and even suggested meeting up when Sarah was back home during the holidays. But more often than not, her messages went unanswered. Weeks turned into months, and soon it had been nearly a year since she'd heard from Sarah. Emily would scroll through social media and see Sarah's life unfold in snapshots, smiling selfies with new friends, pictures from vacations, and late-night posts about wild college parties. In all the photos, Sarah looked happy, vibrant, and full of life, so different from the girl Emily used to know. Every time she saw a new post, a pang of sadness hit her chest. She couldn't help but wonder, was I ever really a part of her life? Or was it all just a fleeting moment? Emily continued to reach out, sending the occasional message, but the replies grew fewer and then stopped altogether. Her inbox was filled with one-sided conversations, text after text from Emily, each more desperate than the last. Hey Sarah, how are you? I miss you. Are you back in town this weekend? I'd love to catch up. Do you remember when we built that tree house together? I drove past it today and thought of you. I hope you're doing okay. I haven't heard from you in a while. I miss you, Sarah. But Sarah never replied. Eventually, Emily stopped sending messages. It became clear that Sarah had moved on. Their friendship, once so precious and full of promise, had become a ghost, a memory of something that no longer existed. The silence between them grew deafening, and Emily was left to grapple with a painful truth. Sometimes, no matter how much you care for someone, they drift away, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Years passed, and life moved on for both of them. Emily graduated, found a job, and built a quiet life for herself. Sarah, from what Emily could see online, was doing the same. But every now and then, on late, lonely nights, Emily would find herself scrolling through old pictures, the ones from when they were kids, with messy hair and wide grins, arms slung around each other like they would never let go. She often wondered if Sarah ever thought about her, about the life they once shared. Did she miss the late-night talks and the childhood adventures? Did she ever look back at those memories with the same bittersweet ache that Emily felt? Or had she simply moved on, leaving their friendship behind like a chapter in an old book that she no longer cared to reread? One evening, on a whim, Emily decided to send one last message. She knew it was futile, that Sarah had long since stopped replying, but something in her heart urged her to try one more time. She typed, hesitated, then hit send. "Hi Sarah, I know it's been a long time, and I don't even know if this number still works, but I wanted to tell you that I've been thinking about you. I miss you, and I hope you're doing well. If you ever want to catch up, I'd love to see you again." The message sat unread for days, and Emily, though not surprised, felt the familiar sting of rejection. She had learned to expect the silence, but it didn't make it hurt any less. She knew this was the end. Their friendship, once a bright and shining part of her life, was now a distant memory, fading with time. Weeks later, as Emily was scrolling through her phone, she noticed something, a message notification. Her heart raced. It was from Sarah. "Hey, Emily, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch. Life has just been busy, I guess. I've thought about you too. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime." For a moment, hope flickered in Emily's chest, a small, fragile thing. But as she stared at the screen, the feeling of joy began to fade. She realized that this message, while it gave her a moment of happiness, didn't erase the years of silence or the unanswered texts. It didn't change the fact that their friendship had already been lost, that the person Sarah had become was no longer the girl Emily had known. Emily didn't reply right away. She closed her phone and sat in the quiet of her room, staring out the window, thinking about the friendship that had once meant everything to her. And in that moment, she understood that sometimes the hardest part of growing up isn't losing a friend. It's realizing that you were never as close as you thought you were.